Good morning, everyone. We're just about to start. Okay, my name is Siobhan Hook. I'm a senior advocate and I'm a moderator today. I can tell you that we have 16 people listening from the live feed, and we're taking questions. So, as you can see, we have 6 senior executives from the renewable industry. And the format is that we will start with a short introduction from Mr. Andreas Bruno from Webcast, and then I will introduce the rest of the executives, and I'll start off by asking each of them a question, and then we'll open to questions from other journalists. So, Mr.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anders Lundgaard, and I'm the CEO of Vestas Wind System, a European-based global wind turbine manufacturer. I would like to thank you all for coming here this morning. We can all see that energy is in the news, especially because Europe has to choose its post-2020 policy. In January, the European Commission proposed a 2030 binding target of 40% emission reduction and a legally binding EU-level target of 27% for renewable energy. It is a positive step that the European Commission proposed a binding target for renewable energy. However, what is essential is that there are national binding targets. That is why we encourage EU head of state to support the clear position adopted by the European Parliament last week that includes national targets of 30%. We are convinced that the EU head of state will recognize the significant green growth that renewables have delivered and how important 2030 binding national targets will be to continue that track record of success. It is in this context of Europe's upcoming policy decision that we are here today. We represent manufacturers, developers, utilities, and have created hundreds of thousands of euros and many billions of euros in investment. We are here to present why we see a need for more ambitious policy and to explain why ambitious policy and national renewable targets are crucial to Europe's economy, energy and climate future. We are convinced that the EU head of state We are part of a group of 91 European companies and organizations, which have signed a business statement calling for a strong 2030 climate and energy framework, with an ambitious renewable energy target, including binding climate targets. I now hand over to the moderator of this press conference, Mrs. Hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. So I think we have the impression we have to speak up on this mic, is that right?
Please speak right into the
So, get close and cozy and speak up. So I'll just introduce the other executives we have with us today. So we have Jean-Marc Almitano, who is CEO at Webcast, and we have Massimo Durkee, who is CEO at ERG. Then we have Hans-Dieter Kettwig, who is Managing Director at Enicor, Denis Cochet, Senior Vice President at Ulster, and Rafael Mateo, CEO at Acciona Energia. I'm going to start with a question for Mr. Amitano. Now, your company, Webcast, develops renewable projects in many countries. Is a single finding EU target for 2030 the best way to promote low carbon energy?
Yes, good morning everyone. So Jean-Marc Almitano, CEO of Resnet, part of the RES Group, been one of the world-leading renewable developer in Europe for the last 30 years, and has an installed capacity of installed about 40 gigawatts worldwide. So we do believe that relying on the CO2 target alone definitely is not enough for the following reason. First of all, we believe that it will be reliant on short-term price signals versus the long-term targets, and that would stem investment in renewables, which have the biggest potential of cost reduction on the long run. Also, we believe that it would be counterproductive to reach the ultimate goal, which is to reduce the carbon emission, because there is a serious risk of an early fossil fuel blocking, because if you're looking for the cheapest way to produce energy in the short term, one may go to gas, and which has upfront lower cost, but in the long run has much higher and much unpredictable running costs, so which means in the long run cost for the consumer, but also pollution, because these plants will be there for decades. Thirdly, we believe that the CO2 alone target would ignore the wider benefit of renewable energy deployment, which are not captured in emission reduction only. I'm saying about job creation and also the GDP and choice issue with that opportunity to elaborate later on. Finally, also, it would assume that carbon price remains very high and stable while we feel affordable. So on the contrary, we believe that binding an ambitious target would avoid these outcomes by giving the EU nations a complementary policy to emission reduction targets. So first of all, it would be a very clear signal to companies like ours, but also to the financial community, that renewable energy is an EU infrastructure priority, and that would drive innovation, thinking about storage, also coordination of grid offshore, and which would consolidate the position of EU company in the international renewable energy market. Also, it would enable planning and financing of common infrastructure, such as the electric interconnection, which would on the long term reduce costs, but also make network much more resilient. And finally, it would be also easier to anticipate the renewable energy in the power sector carbon, so make it possible to adjust the emission trading system cap. So to conclude, we think that setting a coordinated manner an ambitious renewable energy target with emission reduction will be mutually beneficial by avoiding nuclear or fossil fuel blocking and reducing long-term energy costs for the benefit of the consumer.
Thank you, Mr. Amitano, and thank you also for keeping to 3 minutes. Say earlier, if you can keep this round, the answers to 3 minutes and then we can speak more later. So the next question goes to Massimo Durkee. Now your company, ERG Review, is producing wind power in several EU countries. What do you think of the Commission's recommendation to have a single EU-wide renewables target from 2030 without binding national targets?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Indeed, we all not operate energy in various European countries, both in Western Europe and East Europe. And as you mentioned, there is a basic inconsistency in fixing a binding target at European level without having corresponding binding target at national level. As a matter of fact, nobody has yet managed to explain how it could work. Clearly, we cannot only rely on the willingness of various states. The ultimate result of not having binding targets at national level will probably be further renationalization of energy policies, despite the calls and statements that we should go the opposite direction of a more and more integrated European-wide energy market. And I think it is also important to consider the situation of today. Today we have in Europe several countries that, despite having binding targets, have introduced retroactive measures on the regulatory framework. We have Spain, Bulgaria, Romania, to some extent to Italy too. And these led to strong impact on the credibility and the confidence on investors. This is a long-term sector, and investors in any country really need to have a long-term framework that they can believe in. And you can also have a proof of that when you consider the actors that are present in this market. Today there is a lot of liquidity, there are a lot of pension funds, infrastructure funds, insurers that look at renewables with strong interest and invest heavily in them. Well, those investments are today limited to those countries like UK, like Germany, France, where there is stability on regulatory framework, and investors believe that there will be a long-term scenario to deliver. While other countries, thanks to many countries in Eastern Europe, Iberia, to some extent Italy too, the presence of these investors is much more limited or absent, just because there is a lack of credibility. So I'd like to prove that at the end of the day, what we need is a much stronger governance from the European community, and certainly not vice versa.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. And so my next question goes to Rafael Mateo, who is CEO of Acciona Energia. Mr. Mateo, your company specializes in developing renewable power across the world. What policy and investment conditions do renewables need in Europe to become market competitive and no longer need subsidies?
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the question. I'm representing Acciona Energia. It's a global utility. I'm representing Acciona Energia. It's a global utility that is operating in more than 20 countries with 8,500 megawatts, mainly based in Europe, but with some activities also in emerging countries, in Africa, and in some countries of Asia. Before going to your question, I'd like to discuss briefly about if Europe needs more renewables or not. The answer for us is clearly yes, because the main issue we have today in Europe is the energy dependence. Europe is spending, not investing, is spending more than 1 billion euros a day importing oil and gas. And even doing that, Europe has not the control of the prices of the oil and gas. It's not having the control of the sources, it's not having the control of the security of supply in the long term, so it's not having the control of the long-term prices of the energy for the future. So even without considering the environmental behavior, the environmental impact of the renewables, Europe has the necessity of increasing the renewables capacity because the security of supply, because the independence and security of the energy. Going directly to your question, energy is a long-term business, so energy is a very intensive business in investment at the beginning of the cycle of the life of the assets, and the assets needs to be very well operated for many years, maybe 30, more 40, or even more than 40 years. So that the investors needs to invest in energy in Europe is stability. The investors are not asking for incentives. For the investors is more important the stability than the incentives. Stability means long-term framework, stable rules, stable contracts, no surprises, no regulatory surprises in the middle of the life of the assets. So the legal and the economical long-term stable framework is very important for the investors, more incentives. The incentives today probably are not necessary in some of the technology, because in the past the incentives were used in developing innovation, R&D, and medium high-tech activities, letting some technologies as wind, as PV, very competitive, so solar technology are competing in several markets in the world without incentives against the rest of the fossil technology. So the most important is stability, new rules for the new assets, stable rules for the existing assets. Renewables is a vision, it's a long-term policy. The investors are asking for the unique single regulatory policy in Europe, not 27 rules, 27 policies, a single energy policy, a single energy market, and more room for the newcomers. Newcomers are increasing the competitiveness in the markets, and newcomers are getting better and lower prices and more stable in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. And then moving on to Anders Nordmark, you're CEO of the wind turbine business investments. We were just talking there about technologies becoming market competitive. Wind turbines have been around for more than 30 years. When will they become market competitive?
So let me respond by first a bit of historic facts that I think are a good indication of the prediction of the development going forward. So, and of course using wind as an example. So the global average of the levelized cost of energy for onshore wind has fallen from about 200 euros per megawatt hour in 1984 to about 52 million or 52 euros per megawatt hour in 2012. So a considerable improvement in a very short time. Thank you.
Okay, so if you don't have your mobile phones in your pockets, I think that's the way forward.
Yeah, so a tremendous improvement. And also another study from Bloomberg Energy shows that the production of 1 kilowatt onshore wind has been reduced with about 14% for every time the installation has done. And if you look at the last 5 years, average levelized cost of energy for wind has been reduced 15%, while all fossil alternatives actually have increased the cost of energy. So there is no doubt that historically we are getting to lower and lower and much more competitive situation. And it's also no doubt that the alternatives, of course, being a resource that will end actually goes up in price. So already today, as we also heard, wind is competitive in some markets without any support. But of course this development is made possible by a stable framework. So coming back to that, a stable framework where investments are going in to improve the efficiency, improve the technology, and attract investment to this industry. That's a prerequisite. Post-2020, an increased number of renewable energy technologies, including onshore wind, will surely be able to move away from support mechanisms. And again, our industry is committed to continue to reduce the cost of energy. And when we talk about market forces, I think it's also important to remember that we then need a level playing field. and actually remove subsidies from the other alternatives as well. So that's clearly a direction we have to go.
Thank you, Mr. Riemann. And so my next question goes to Hans-Dieter Catholic from Managing Director at MCAN. Now, you're also a global, your company is also a global producer. What is the impact of higher renewables output on grid system reliability and security? Does it increase the risk of blackouts? And what can we do about it?
Thank you. Also from my side, a big welcome back to City, that we stay here together. I think sometimes I speak another language, Präsentation der Investors and so on, and you speak one language. I think from the Enercon perspective, we have now to accept that we have an energy mix. That means the old economy history, coal, gas, nuclear, and so on, and a new green wind and solar. We must accept that we now need intelligence in the grid. For example, in Germany, we installed last year 3,000 megawatt, and also there's a big discussion now about grids and so on, and our focus is to put intelligence in the grid, intelligence into the wind turbines. I think we all together work on it, that we have a lot of intelligence in the electrical part of wind turbines, and now we need also intelligent power plants to bring it up and down and bring this whole things together. And the other solution, what Enercon is thinking, is that we put the wind turbines there where the customer in the data center to have a risk share of the whole country. If you see the map of Germany and Spain and so on, then you see that also France, that the wind turbines for the next years and the last 2 years they go in the sites. That means we share the risk of the grid, and I think sometimes a lot of things can be done with storages for the future. And yeah, the big advantage is for the green one that we have now after 2030 we will show the people that we have 100% green with storages and batteries and so on, and that could be a solution for many things.
Thank you, Mr. Catholic. And the last question goes to Nakoshi, who is Senior Vice President at Alstom. Now, Alstom builds and operates all sorts of power stations and also power transmission lines. How much would Europe need to invest in power generation and lines in order to achieve this 45% renewable share the Commission is talking about in electricity by 2030?
Obviously, we need to invest a lot. As it has been said already by our colleagues, to invest, we need to have a framework, we need to have visibility, and we need to attract the financial. This is true for developing new projects, this is true for developing new technology, this is true for developing the product of tomorrow, talking about storage, talking about offshore, talking about tidal. All that we need to attract and to have in our vision. So Alstom, we are working maybe slightly different from my colleague, because we are working in the power generation business for all types of technologies. We believe that the portfolio is there. But we are developing strongly in renewable, and that's why I'm here today. We are also working in the grid business, and we are working in the transport business, which all are concerned with our question. So the electricity grid that we have today in Europe was built half a century ago, together with a very centralized fossil power plant, mainly, a very pyramidal system. It's very clear that this grid needs to be upgraded, refurbished, better interconnected, to encourage flexibility, balancing, and improve the security of supply, regardless of the source of energy. With our energy service business, which we can call smart grid, we are able to contribute to market balancing, both on the demand response and on the supply side, and we also continuously improve the integration of intermittent resources into the system, intermittent and or decentralized resources also, which is agriculture. And if it is combined with energy storage, for instance, reliable from storage, the network stability increases even further. So how much, you asked me the question, how much investment? The European Commission itself said that we will need something like 140 billion euro up to 2020, just to refurbish the high voltage grid, to develop storage and to develop smart grid. So it's big money. If you add to that, obviously, all the investment in new power generation, it's several hundred of billion euros. But we believe that it is money well spent. Better interconnected grids come with large benefit. We will reduce a lot the cost and the need of peaking power, balancing better the various things. It also improves competition in the electricity market, because if we are interconnected, and if we improve the competitiveness and the thing, obviously one country can benefit from the tariff of the other country and vice versa, and it goes for the benefit of the consumer at the end of the day, if the price decreases. Finally, and to conclude, there are some initiatives, and the Commission Connecting Europe facility and the list of projects of common interest is already a good start, and we hope it will bring the ambitious result. But again, if we want all this investment to come, if we want to find financing for all this investment, we need to have a legal framework which is stable and that we can rely on.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Koshi. So now we're going to move to questions from the journalists, and we'll hand this microphone over to someone.
Can you just raise your hand if you want to ask a question? Okay, so I think we'll go in pairs, and if you can say who you are, who you represent,
So we've got the targets, that's one thing. But another thing is perhaps the structure of the renewable sports schemes in different member states. We probably read the Africa General's opinion a couple of weeks ago about the legality of national sports schemes which restrict producers from other member states, especially the Finnish, Swedish case. I was wondering if national support schemes do not restrict producers from other states, are you in favour of that, or will you come out against, or your opposition seems to come out against that in advance? And how would that boost renewable support? Or are you introducing that as a major threat at this point in time?
Lane Green from The Economist. You talked a lot about the renewables target, which you think is critical to your future. Only at the very end did we talk about competition and the grid. Mr. Tepig and Mr. Cochet both mentioned the grid. Everybody knows that there is no real single European energy market. You're here calling for sort of a guaranteed level of, guaranteed share of the energy market. But why not make an equally loud call to European policymakers to create a truly competitive, integrated energy market? Presumably you all believe that your companies are strong and competitive, so that would be just as much to your benefit and to your future as a guaranteed share of the energy market.
Okay, thank you. I think they were both questions for all the panel, but perhaps all the panel doesn't need to answer. Is there anyone who would like to take the Orland's case, the court case that might open up national renewable sports schemes? Any takers? Well, I might make it all answer. No one said sorry. Perhaps Massimo, because you were talking about the national targets and national policy, I mean, what would happen if the renewable support schemes started?
Well, I'm not sure if I understood correctly your question. You refer to the possibility to exchange for different countries or incentive of both countries?
Yeah, there's a case at the Court of Justice the General has already given his opinion saying that it's illegal, it goes against treaty to restrict national renewable support to producers and companies just based on that.
We believe that removing such restriction could benefit for investors. Again, I think the basic issue is to have a predictable system and the rules which one in various countries. So you may have different percentage schemes. You may have allowance to sources from different countries. But the major issue is that you have to take into account when you plan investment, and the rules should not mention right now.
Just to add, I think what we said is the more regulation we have, the more constraint we have, the more difficult the development of the market will be. So for me, I am clearly in favor of not having this type of restriction. And again, I share what has just been said. If we want to have real incentive, and if we want to attract the financing, we need to have clear rules. Imagine a bank or whatever, a pension fund, want to invest in the system, and one day ends up in court because of a problem like that. Obviously, it will restrict the financing of this type of project. So the more open the situation is, the better it is, I think, for the government. That's my personal view.
Okay, so we see some nods. And then the second question was about whether you should be pushing more strongly for a truly single European electricity market, and who likely does that. Here we go.
Just for to say that all technologies in different countries, they are not the same level. There are discrepancies in the maturities of technologies themselves already. Wind onshore is more economically mature than wind offshore, or PV is catching up, as we've seen over the last few years, but some others are in the end, so still need some support. So this is why we believe that prescriptive and differentiating measure at a member state level is of importance. And if we take an example of biomass, for instance, it's 3 gigawatt installed in Germany, 300 megawatt installed in France. So you need to have this technology are not yet at complete maturity, technical and economical maturity level. So they need some support, and it's important to look at the specific situations and to elaborate an appropriate transitional period before ultimately, so we will welcome that under a pure global market
and would anyone else like to comment on the regulated market? Oh, here we go.
I think what is in the one-brain from this question, sometimes we must see that every country has its own culture and its own problems. We spend a lot of money to Greece, to Italy, Spain, and so on and so on. And now the next steps must come to North Africa and so on again. And let's see from the whole perspective that we say the CO2 problems in Europe must be increased and so on and so on. But the next is to bring work in these countries, because otherwise they have no idea. And so if you can send infrastructure to this lands, they need it. They need it more than money. And so I think that could also be an idea for the green industry to put it more into the newspapers or everywhere that green products can help these countries for the future. And I think every country must think about that. If you see this destroying of the North Africa culture and so on, then we must also accept that the next money will go to erect something. And sometimes we think that it could also be a big program to install green energy in these areas, so that it will create jobs on site and so on and so on. And I think that is also the idea after this question, but every country has its own ideas for the future.
Okay, thank you very much. So more questions?
Okay, so at the end of Barbara and the one next one.
It's Barbara Smolson's. My question is, it's a bit frivolous, but it's also serious. We had an agreement group in Thailand last year of the CEOs of utilities who were arguing very strongly for one target, but didn't want a renewable target. And I wondered if you had a name, and if you considered that there was conflict between utilities within themselves and what you were asking for and what utilities are asking for. Thank you.
Thank you. And then a question from the next one.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Wolf Davis from DPA, German Press, from the German Press Agency. Just one very simple question. What would be the difference for you if you don't get nationally binding targets? Would this mean for you that until 2030, no emission at all in Southern Europe, and all emission just in Germany and Denmark? What concretely would this mean for you? And just one call to the Madrid group. They are arguing that actually everybody knows that renewables do have a very bright future, and that progress will come anyway. So why do we actually need a separate renewable target model? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the first question was about potential conflicts between utilities where different parts of the business want different things. Anyone want to take that? I'll pick someone if you don't want it. Actually, I guess it might be because you do have more than one area other than the
I think we need to have target, and again, it is the role of the Commission to set target. So to have a target on CO2 emission is part of the game. But as we said, for me, what is important is we need to have energy which is secure, which is competitive, and which is sustainable. What do we need for that? Security means that you don't depend only on import from oil or gas countries. It means also that you need to fix the problem of intermittency. Security means a lot of things. Competitiveness, obviously, you need also to go through the technology path, which is some technology are mature and already competitive, some others are not yet. That look, we have not talked about tidal, but tidal is something that in Europe, or at least in the UK, in France, in some, because we have such a good tide over there, could be a technology. It is not competitive today. Maybe it will not be competitive yet in 2020, but if we don't get the direction and the visibility. And finally, we need to have a sustainable. And sustainable means also clean energy as much as possible. So this is what. So if you look at the 2020 target, you have the 20% on renewable, which is clearly the clean side of it. You have the energy efficiency, which is more the cost side of it, and you have the 20% on CO2, which is also the clean side of it. Why this time should we have only one target on CO2, which is my understanding as well, is what the Madrid group wants to promote, is only one target on CO2. I think it would be much better if we could have also a target in renewable and a target in energy efficiency, that you have not yet mentioned, to have a more balanced approach.
Okay, thank you.
For the second questions, I think with the binding targets at national level, and we see it's also key what happened in 2001 after the European Directive on Renewable Energy that was published. You had the historical pioneers in Denmark, which continued to develop. You had Germany, and then you had Spain. So you have three champions, but the actual share will not spread continually within the European Union. While after when they introduced the 2020 framework, this has completely changed with the national targets, where you see mostly new markets such as France, such as the UK, such as Sweden, Portugal as well. So after year, looking back to a situation like 2001 with no target, there will be a lack of ownership of the global targets by the different member states, and only some of them may decide to push that. So others, member states, would rely on their colleagues, would rely on the other country to achieve that. And again, having in mind the fact that the 2020 framework, has pushed renewable energy in one of the most dynamic sectors, despite the financial crisis and economic downturns. Renewable energy contributes to about 1% of GDP, and all studies have shown that is creating maximum jobs compared to conventional sources. So we believe that in targets at national level, we continue to contribute to this job creation. We believe that the two targets, having GHG reduction plus an ambition renewable target, will create a further 170,000 jobs over the period to 2030. So that's what we believe that this should be done.
Thank you.
Finally, fact, if you want to know what's going to happen, then there will be no target. You can just look at what is going on today. Due to the change of the announcement about future change in the regulatory framework, you have a collapsing escalation rate in several countries. If you look at, not to talk about Spain, even in Italy, and standing in France. All this strong decrease of the installation phase is consequence of uncertainty. And the ultimate effect of the collapse in new build is simply twofold. On one side, you will have more and more difficulty in achieving the already 2030 target, but to talk about the 2030 target. The second consequence is that the turbine vendors will progressively move their factories in the workforce to countries where there is a long-term growth. So there is nothing unpredictable about the lack of national targets. You already see what will happen after that.
Yeah, and I mean, just to add to that, there are all great benefits to have the European target. So I mean, it creates more stability, a larger framework with many countries, and I mean, we talk about the grid, which of course is also very relevant, and of course also from a climate perspective, there are more countries. So I think that will be.
Thank you. Oh, okay, the last one I think is going to be done.
Let me add something. I think it's not very necessary to have a binding target in terms of renewable, because if you are flexible in the target, you could be flexible in the technology. It depends on the countries. Some countries are wind countries, or some countries are very rich in solar radiation, but you should be flexible at the technology, but not in the target. If you are flexible in the target, some countries could have more renewables than necessary, or some of them could have less than necessary. Both things are very bad for the system because they are not efficient. So the countries with more renewables are paying more, having more investment, paying more expensive energy for customers, overcapacity. So the investment needs to be very correctly planned. It's necessary very correct governance from the regulators in the different countries are expecting exactly the figures from the European Commission. It's not a question of freedom.
Okay, thank you very much. So one question, the lady in front and the man beside you.
subsidies to be continued as they are in the future, and how long do you want it to remain at this time? That is my first question. And second, you say that we need more than 140 billion to be invested in the grid. Obviously, public money is, we don't have that much public money. Should we use the subsidies for renewables to finance this grid if it allows more competition in the market? And but more seriously, how should we finance these investments in the grid? If we are looking for private investors, then we need a long-term price, I guess. So what should be the long-term price for electricity? How do we assess it? And the fact that there are so many subsidies for renewables, doesn't it belong to the problem rather than to the solution? Because we don't have a clear price signal on the market, so investors don't want to invest for the next 30 or 40 years in the grid. So I would be happy to have you here on.
Okay, and the gentleman on the last floor.
My name is Nawab Khan. I am from the Kuwait News Agency Pune. From the statistics and reports that we are getting here in Europe, they say that Europe will become more dependent on fuel and gas imports in the next decades. So how realistic are you when you are calling for a reduction of the €1 billion per day imports of fuel base? Is it not merely a wishful thinking? Thank you.
Okay, so the first question was about whether subsidies need to continue, when they can stop, and how do we finance the investment in the renewables, and how do we get clear price signals to the current levels? Are you thinking?
I think if you look at the impact assessment of the Commission of the Parliament, you will see that in all the scenarios by 2030, you have more or less the same level of subsidies as being required. You see that if you look at the highest scenarios for renewable energy, which is the 35%, you will see that that will require more subsidies on the initial period, but on the second period, from 2030 to 2050, this scenario would be required much less subsidy than any others. And it is interestingly, yesterday, the Institute Fraunhofer of Germany released a study that I haven't read completely, because it was released recently, but just a report and summary basically saying that by 15 to 20 years, the annual amount of investment, that's for the energy plan, that's for the energy transition in Germany, the subsidy amount we received would have been completely offset, would have been covered by the reductions, cost savings on imports of fossil fuels. My colleague mentioned earlier on that it's about €1 billion per day, it's 421 billion per year, and the trade deficit of the energy in Europe. And if you look today, renewable energy has allowed to avoid about 10 billion, while wind alone is about 2 billion. So the big question is, yes, we continue to support, but the big point is that this support will be offset and will generate a value for the consumer while creating jobs and economic benefits during the period.
I just want to have a slightly different perspective on the subsidies. Yes, some technology will need subsidies, and will need subsidies for quite some time. I mentioned tidal earlier, things like that. Some others are more mature. So again, I don't think there is a single answer to your question. Some technology are probably today close to be mature and needing a big subsidy. The second thing is the way the governments are on this subsidy. And if we believe that having strong subsidies for any type of technology, these subsidies going directly to a country in the Far East, I don't think that it is the right solution.
And there was a second question, well, you touched on it already,
another question first on the green investment. Yes, it's huge investment, but on the other hand, we have not invested for decades. So at some point in time, we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and have we done the right thing. Again, it was said there are plenty of resources in terms of financing. But we will attract financing only if we have a clear framework and a long-term view. This is the only question. After that, obviously, if you are able to find system money, we will need the EU support because interconnecting two grids between two countries is going beyond the one thing. So it's where we will need some regulation and some support. But again, the financing, I don't think it is a problem. It is available as soon as you have the framework.
But then how do we get the long-term price that makes this investment possible?
Yes, that's the price. It's two things. You have the price of producing the electricity, the price of transporting the electricity. It's clear that we will not have a long-term price. I don't see how we can fix a long-term price.
And does anyone else come in on the fuel inputs questions? Anyone else?
I think that the overall figure is, I believe it's about 260 billion rural savings with a scenario of 30% of renewable energies.
Another last comment on the subsidies. I think our clear opinion is that with a stable framework we can actually reduce them and scale them back quick because that creates the certainty. And as the panel discussed, there are different technologies, some of them are very mature, very competitive, and then again a level playing field where we actually look at subsidies across the board and not just on renewable. It's something that I'm not sure about.
Okay, so are there more questions? The lady in the middle.
Thank you. I'm Caitlin Hart from the Danish news agency. I have a question more specifically to Anspola. I know that your market is growing surprisingly in other parts of the world, also Saudi Arabia, and now when there are no binding targets right now from the Commission side, and they're not as high as you want them to be, the renewable goals. When is the European market not attractive anymore, and you might want to look to other parts of the world? And one more question: can you be more specific about what this means to you if there will be no binding goals on the renewable energy? A question from
Arthur is then you're active. Following on from the last question, also from something that Massimo said earlier. There's been a lot of talk about low carbon leakage, firms moving abroad or deciding to invest abroad because there's more stability in long-term frameworks and so on. I was just wondering if there have been any examples that you could put down to low carbon leakage in your companies of decisions to move production abroad or invest abroad because there are more supportive frameworks abroad, and is that something that any of you are considering currently or expect to be considering in the future?
Okay, so the first question please.
So thank you. I mean, of course, Europe continues to be a very important market for us investors, and Europe has been in the forefront of renewables. And my opinion is that let's not stop now when we are so close to the finish line. Let's continue to drive that into Europe. Investment has gone in renewables. Europe has created a lot of momentum around renewables, a lot of European-based companies, a lot of jobs in Europe. We are close to the finish line, so let's not stop now then for the next phase. So, and for my company, definitely Europe is important. And at the same time, of course, we work on a global based in Europe. I will not speculate exactly, of course, on the business impact of country-specific or not. I mean, Europe today some champions definitely in Europe that continue to drive wind, and I don't expect a big change in that.
Okay, and the other question was about if you have any examples of carbon leakage or companies doing that.
Just another form of question. Just to say that while we will also need to rely on our own countries and use the kind of growth, I think it's important in that area to consolidate leadership in the technology. And the balance of trade globally of renewable energy is 2.45 billion in 2012. So if we were to focus our efforts outside of the world, I'm concerned that this could mean that other countries, and people in the US, for instance, in particular, will become our position there. So it's important for the market to
Okay, and then on the carbon leakage question, and so what's
Some comments about authority stability for investors. There are many countries in the world that are developing renewables policy with new rules. There are countries that they have the necessity of adding more capacity and humidity in a very quickly manner. So there are a lot of possibilities. Maybe some long-term contracts with final customers, some PPA contracts for the final customers are giving to the investors the stability they need for investment. The renewables is a very easy valuable investment because the renewables is no risk energy. Renewables are not the risk of the technology because it's a very mature technology. In some of them there is no risk of dispatching because the priority of the dispatching, there is no risk of the demand because they are dispatching in the base of the dispatching curve. So the only risk the renewal to the have is the regulatory risk. That should be controlled risk. The way of avoiding this when there are a lot of regulators inventing new rules every day, the only possibility of maintaining the stable course is long-term contract with final customers or long-term PPA contracts with the off-takers.
Okay, and then you will
the question about carbon, could you repeat the question? Because
I said, did I understand right that you were asking if they had any examples?
Examples of low. I was asking if you had any examples of low carbon leakage within your own company, if it was something you might be considering in the future, either investing abroad when you could have been investing in Europe, or moving production abroad.
I can give you an example which is, I think it's not really the debate of today, but if you look at the carbon capture and storage, CCS technology, this is a domain where we, as Alstom, invested a lot of money, hundreds of millions in this technology. And I would say the US and EU were at the front of the battle at the beginning. Suddenly, all health support or whatever mechanism were abandoned, both in Europe and in North America, almost all. We are still trying to develop one in UK to right. But most of the investment in the future on CCS will be done in China, because the Chinese government is pushing in that direction. EU is not pushing, the US government is not pushing. So this is for me the direct example.
So there's a direct comparison with what will happen with wind.
Sorry?
Is there a direct comparison with what could happen with wind energy?
I can give you another example, which is directly. We have committed at Alstom to invest and to build 4 factories in France to support the wind offshore. If the wind offshore is not supported anymore, probably we'll think twice and put our money elsewhere. But today we are committed to put it in France because we have a certain visibility. So that's it's as simple as that. Do you know? Yes, we have some partnership, yes. We have some partnership.
Okay, we're going to move on. There's 2 more questions left over.
Yeah, good morning everyone. I'm Ben Backwell, the Editor-in-Chief of Recharge magazine. Just a quick one. How confident are you in being able to turn this around? I mean, we have this commission paper. We have all of you together now, with a united voice. I mean, how do we turn this around? How confident are you that that you can have some influence here and that we can get some kind of new final position? I'd particularly like to ask Mr. Kettwick, given that Germany has publicly disagreed with the commission paper. I mean, how much can be done, and how much you think will be done there?
And the lady
Yeah, just a short question. I'm Julie Marietta from Context, French publication. I just look at the title, and it's called for an ambitious 2030 renewable energy target, but none of you gave us a figure. What is an ambitious target?
Okay, so the first one is how you make your voice properly heard and make a difference, and the second one is what targets are you using? I mean, this one we could maybe go down the line. Do you have to do that?
Do you mean the paper now from us together?
I mean, how confident are you that you can change from what the commission paper is now, with just one single target, to something more like what you would like?
I think from our perspective, it's not enough. We think that the targets for 2030 must be higher, because it's like a real life. Without targets, we're not under pressure. The industry is under pressure for the green energy to bring up the wind turbines in very good shape for a good price. The offshore market must be under pressure to bring the price down, otherwise they have no chance for the future. The onshore market must show that we are able to produce wind turbines also in the Midland, also with high towers, with big motor diameters, and so we must invest a lot in R&D and in many people, and we know everybody that everybody on the table knows that we have a lot of reserves also in direction teams and so on and so on. And from Germany, we think it's also not a good sign at this moment from Germany, from the government, to speak a lot of time about the bad things of the green energy. And if you look for the price for the long-term target, then it's for sure that the alternative to the green one is not so good. We must pay it ourselves. That means that we have two solutions. We can see that we are coming now to give tough targets also for us, for the green one, because if we say 35% till 2030 must be green, then it's also a strong target for our groups, for our companies and so on, because we must accept that we then go into the energy mix. And for the other side is, if you have lots of pressure that the whole economy from the utilities must accept that the green one now is coming in the net, it's only 15 years from now, then they will go in the back and say, oh, it's not the target, it's unbinding. And so and then we have not the pressure. The pressure must be in Europe that we must have intelligence for the future. We cannot say we start the last 10, 12 years, make a big foundation with many jobs and many ideas for the future, and now we stop because it's too costly, nobody wanted it, too much grids in the countries, and so on and so on. We feel we must go more positive, and the targets help the people to know it is coming. And then everybody can calculate what is coming. Without targets, and so I think we speak the same language on that. We need targets in the companies, you need targets on the private situation, and also in Europe we must accept if Europe not give a target, what a sign is it to the world? What a sign. We start, and now we are shaking because it could work, it could not work, and so on. I think the idea from Europe is to show the world that it could be a very good idea for jobs and so on, and then my speech before for South Africa and so on. The globals is more for everybody, and the European Communion can show this is the target and this will be accepted by the other countries. Otherwise we have think it's sometimes not so easy.
Just thinking on there was a second question. They're pressing you on what the target should be. I mean, perhaps there's a European Council coming up. What would you like to see?
No, I think it's very factual. It's obvious we should have stayed in more. I mean, we mentioned the figures earlier on. We mentioned 30%, minimum is 30%, and binding at national level is what we have to achieve. What has been explained now.
Okay, I think there was. Any more questions? This is the last. Okay, this is the last question here.
Thomas Friedrich, VDE Nachrichten, German Engineering Newspaper. Germany was in the lead with the Energiewende to bring renewables on top. And now Germany is facing a big problem as we designed infrastructure, south grid from north, bringing wind energy from north to south. But what can you tell us about the obstacles, and what is your opinion about the Bavarian minister, Prime Minister Seehofer, who is against such 800 kilometers high voltage.
Very much, please.
So very short. I think the discussion is very long, and Mr. Seehofer was a fantastic politician. But he must be aware that after 2022, he has new nuclear power station in Bavaria. And I personally think that Mr. Seehofer now think about that, because sometimes he says yes to the grid and sometimes no. And the big grid line is also not erected at this moment. So the discussion will come, and the chance of the onshore market is to show that if we go with our technique into the field, into the Midlands, then we need grid for sure, but also we need the ideas for the smart grids to bring the wind turbine into the Midlands. And then also Mr. Seehofer has a lot of space in Bavaria. He can install 1,000 megabytes in the next 8 years without any problem, so we can help. And I think it will come, but the discussion will also come. If we install the wind turbines not, the grid line will also come, because the offshore market needs the wind. The grid lines bring the north energy to the south. But you are right, in Germany is a big discussion at this moment. In history, the south areas, Baden-Württemberg, Bavaria, Rheinland-Pfalz, and so on, was the energy center. Now it starts to come from the north side to the south. The discussion is ongoing. But it's to be continued.
Could I just make a comment on the previous question? I don't think it's about, as you put it, turn the situation around. I think first of all, I think it's encouraging that the Commission has proposed a legally binding target for 27%, even if it was already studied. I think it's also encouraging that Parliament has adopted that. So what we are discussing is, of course, how do you make the legally binding target legally binding, and that we think is very important that those are on a national level. So I think we have a lot of positive news as well. So it's not a situation of turning things around. It's to make sure that we actually get now to the point where the Commission has recommended.
Okay, I have some questions. So one of the ministers, Mr. Ruba, he talked earlier about that under good conditions, onshore wind is already market competitive. Can you tell us what those good conditions are and where and when they're happening? So, which country and how that works?
Yeah. One example, of course, is we're seeing in Latin American countries with good wind resources and also a lot of other natural resources. We see in energy auctions new built energy consumptions that wind without any support mechanism has taken up to 90% of that new build. So we see examples of markets I would say that, of course, there are a lot of good sites in Europe as well with good wind pollution. I think what differs in Europe is also the fact that here it's more of a replacement market. So overall energy consumption is not increasing. So it's not new field, it's actually replacing something else. And then, of course, the financial competitiveness against what? Against running the conventional for a year longer, that's of course one business case, or building new, because you actually need to replace something that is old, or is it for new consumption? So then of course, what we then define as competitiveness. For me, I think it's very important that for new builds, everything else equal, we need to make sure that we continue to be more and more competitive.
Just to add, we shouldn't neglect the fact that in recent years there's been a tremendous improvement in the turbine themselves. If you think about just 2-3 years ago, installing a turbine of 90-meter diameter was maybe the largest diameter you could think about. Right now you can today install turbines higher than 110 meters or 130 meters. That in turn will allows very strongly increase the number of hours that location can use in time with, which ultimately means that the level of subsidies is continuing to make that specific wind farm profitable. It keeps on decreasing, and to some location in Europe we're close to wind farm. So it is a progress that has been doing in the recent years, and if we allow industry to keep developing margin turbines, the competitiveness of the wind industry will continue.
So just to follow up, Mr. Dirk, you said in some locations in Europe, onshore wind is close to grid parity. Which locations?
There are few locations where you can have more than 4,000 hours. Not many, but as long as you keep on having larger diameter turbine, you will have more size like that.
But is that specific site? Can you give me a country? So I can say that in this country.
I mean, I can give you one there, which is not EU, but that's Europe. At least part of it. That's Turkey. With Turkey, you have site with extremely good wind speed. You have also a lot of land with very few habitats, so you have the ability to do a lot of large farms like 50, 100, 130 megawatts, so the under scale. And also you have price of energy, which make today the wind project viable. Even though this is the case, the market still need support mechanisms. Turkey has implemented feed-in tariff that exists, that actually companies are not using because the market is at a high level. But this is of prime importance because in Turkey we are able to finance projects because we have the feed-in tariff that exists, because this gives you visibility. Again, such projects are capital intensive, so we need to have 55, 60, 70% of that, which means that you need to do the visibility. And this is coming from the existence of the support mechanism. But we're not there yet in EU countries, but my colleagues say over the last 3-4 years there has been a big improvement, and we can see that the Turkish example will come in the not too distant future.
So we don't have any other specifically in the EU yet where we can say. But it's coming at some point somewhere in Europe. And so my next question is back on the subsidies and the way that renewables and such like. You mentioned feed-in tariffs there. Another option is green certificate schemes, which are also used by some countries in Europe. There are some people who would argue that having an EU-wide green certificate system would be the best way to give investor stability and cost efficiency that help integrate the market and to make things cheaper for consumers. So do you have a view on whether we should be working towards an EU-wide green certificate system for renewables?
disclosing a feed-in tariff, there is a mechanism for green certificate. The green certificate is much less predictable in terms of price of energy in the future. And therefore, whenever you have a system like that in a society, you increase the expected return on your investment. So, the green certificate mechanism exists and we are successful. They have to be very important designed so that you can really expect that the fluctuation of the price of the green certificate would be relatively limited. If you don't have storage, you don't have a last resort buyer, and if you don't have clarity of the quota for the consumers, the green certificate it might become a system where the price on the long-term basis is very difficult to predict.
So then I would like to ask, actually, each of you, where do you see the growth areas for renewables in Europe? It could be in specific technologies or specific locations. So what are your favourite markets going forward?
I mean, currently, of course, as I said, I think we see Europe as a fairly stable market, definitely higher interest in the northern part of Europe, that's what we see. When it comes to growth, of course, offshore is, from a relatively growth perspective, where we see most percentage growth, and there again, as an industry, we are very dependent on what happens around the North Sea.
Well-established in some core markets, our home market here in the UK, Ireland, also France. We see that as a big potential going forward, where it's part of what I explained before, one of the countries that arrived after the 2020 framework was established. It's about 8 gigawatts of capacity and ability to go to 20. But because of the lack of stability and the issue we've had with the tariff over the last few years, one of these countries which has the biggest potential in Europe has been diminishing capacity, went by 1,200 megawatts years ago, and then 1,000 megawatts, and then last year was 600 megawatts. So we're going in the wrong direction. So we reinforce the importance of, again, the stability in the regime. Otherwise, in EU, we believe German market, and we just created a subsidy there, and otherwise also in Turkey.
Yeah, I agree. I would also add that there are several countries where potential for growth is there, the wind resources there, but the growth is basically hampered by uncertainty and situation. And just to come to a closer country, in Italy we are in a similar situation. We've been growing at the pace of 1 gigawatt per year until basically last year, when the new regulatory system which is now in place has significantly increased the rate of new builds. We're now lower than 400 megawatts per year, despite the fact that we still have the potential for growth. So the issue is not strictly where there is wind potential. The issue is where there is a combination of factors. Wind potential on one side, stability of framework, and decent profitability that allow investors to keep on building.
So from the company Enercon, I must say we have no offshore ideas at this moment, also for the next years. So we have a lot of time to concentrate on the onshore market. And last year we installed 3.7 gigawatt. I think this year everything goes fine, and it's also 3.7. Our focus is directly on the European market and Canada, and for the next 2 years we have 2 other countries in our mind. And then we have enough space and enough time to also speak with the utilities that they accept that the energy mix is coming for the future. And I think there is not a danger, but sometimes we think we must more be proactive to the utilities that they accept that the new industry is coming, and then we find ideas to have a good future with a good price. And for Enercon, everything is speaking about the cheap and the cost and so on, but we think sometimes cheap is not everything, because you must train a lot of people for the new technique and a lot of service people and so on. Our plan is also that we react some other increase the schools for Enercon and so on and so on. A lot of work to do. And we need big targets and very safety rules, because otherwise there's some problems.
I need to repeat in terms of geography, yes, Europe is a key target for us, and France, UK are quite important. Germany is important, probably more because of the replacement and the growing of the thing. The Nordic region is also important. Turkey is obviously. I just want to make something comment slightly different. We do believe that the energy mix is key. And it's why we do believe that all type of technology will be needed in the future and should be given the chance to become competitive. It's why beyond the wind offshore is important, tidal is important, biomass is important, geothermal is also important. All these technologies should be given also the chance to compete. And for us, it's our target. Present as many technology as possible to offer the complete portfolio.
Because the lack of stability in some countries in Europe, because the lack of new electricity demand, probably the focus needs to be in the East Europe countries. We are focusing on some countries, Poland, Balkanic area, or even Turkey. Countries that they have a very old fossil portfolio, and they need to start with the substitution with the old power plants, by new power plants, and in this case, renewables. We are very focused in exporting European technology to the emerging markets, because that we need to be strong in the European messages, in the European signals about being fully convinced about that we are in the correct path, and we are mainly focusing on protecting our existing assets from the volatility of some of the domestic governments.
Okay, well, I think we will wrap it up there. I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and I believe there will be lunch served in about 10 minutes. So you have time to pass on your girls and open up to questions. So thank you once again for coming.
Left there.